The light of a new day sliced through the dusty air of Myra's room, illuminating a landscape of creative stillness. She sat at her desk, a silent figure surrounded by ghosts of art left undone. Pencils lay untouched and stacks of paper waited patiently, but her hands, once so eager, were frozen in hesitation. Beside her, a crumpled sketch served as a constant reminder, the rushed, imperfect drawing from the village exhibition months ago. It was a mistake, a single moment of misjudgment, but its memory had since grown into an insurmountable wall. Outside her window, life flowed with an easy, unburdened rhythm. Birds traced invisible lines across the sky, villagers ambled toward their daily tasks, and the wind whispered through the tall grass in the fields. The world was in motion, but inside Myra's small room, time had stopped. The past had become a heavy shadow, clinging to her, wrapping itself around her will to create. From the doorway, her father watched. He was a man of the earth, his skin weathered by sun and labor, his eyes steady and knowing. He didn't speak, didn't offer advice. His presence was enough a quiet, distant anchor in her sea of doubt. He saw the invisible weight she carried, recognizing the shape of a disappointment he had known in his own youth. He understood that some battles had to be fought alone, but his quiet support was a language of its own. The days began to bleed into one another, each one a near-perfect copy of the last. Myra would sit, pick up a pencil, and attempt to draw. But with every line, a wave of uncertainty would wash over her, and she'd stop, her hand hovering in midair. The memory of her failure was a constant companion, a faded silhouette that trailed behind her whenever she stepped into the sunlight. It was a shadow she couldn't outrun, a whisper she couldn't silence. In search of solace, she started taking long walks to the lakeside every afternoon, her sketchbook clutched in her hand like a shield. The lake was her sanctuary, its surface a vast mirror reflecting the ever-changing sky. Here, the world felt simpler, cleaner. She'd sit for hours, not drawing, but just watching. She studied the way the light danced on the water, the intricate patterns of ripples breaking around a stone, the soft, distant shape of a boat drifting toward the horizon. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, something began to shift. She started sketching again, but not the grand, ambitious pieces that once filled her mind. Instead, she focused on the small things, a single fallen leaf resting on the damp earth, the gentle curve of a wave lapping the shore, the delicate silhouette of a reed against the setting sun. These weren't masterpieces. They were observations, quiet conversations between her eyes and her hand. With each small sketch, a bit of her confidence returned. The movements of her hand became less tentative, more assured. Her lines, once shaky and uncertain, grew in clarity and purpose. The shadow of her past was still there, a persistent ache in the back of her mind, but she no longer froze beneath its weight. Instead, she learned to work alongside it, to acknowledge its presence without letting it dictate her every move. It became a quiet companion on her journey, a reminder not of her failure, but of her resilience. She was learning, adjusting, pushing her art to become more deliberate, more honest, more her own. One evening, the village held a small community gathering near the lakeshore. The air was warm, filled with the murmur of conversation and the soft glow of lanterns strung between the trees. As part of the festivities, an open call was made for local artists to display their work on a simple wooden stand. It was a casual affair, a celebration of local talent, but for Myra, it felt like a monumental challenge. Just as the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, she arrived. She moved through the crowd quietly, almost unseen, clutching a single new drawing wrapped carefully in a soft cloth. Her heart hammered against her ribs, and with every step toward the display stand, the memory of her past failure flickered in her mind like a storm cloud. The familiar fear threatened to paralyze her, to send her retreating back into the shadows. But this time, something was different. She reached the stand, her hands trembling slightly, and took a deep, steadying breath. She paused, closed her eyes for a moment, and then, with a newfound resolve, she exhaled. She lifted the cloth, revealing the drawing beneath. It was the lake at dawn. The paper captured the soft, ethereal light of the rising sun, the clean, confident lines of the water's edge, and the gentle, hazy warmth that seemed to radiate from the page. It wasn't just a picture of the lake. It was a reflection of her renewed spirit, a testament to the quiet battles she had fought and won. She placed the drawing in the center of the stand. For a moment, there was only silence. Then slowly, the villagers began to gather around. They leaned in, their faces illuminated by the warm lantern light, and murmurs of admiration rippled through the crowd. They saw not just a beautiful drawing, but the quiet strength and dedication it represented. As she stood there, watching them, a strange lightness settled over her. She looked down and noticed that the long, dark shadow that had followed her for so long seemed to have lightened in the golden evening glow. It was no longer a looming, oppressive presence, but something softer, more distant. In that moment, surrounded by her community, she felt the heavy weight of yesterday finally begin to dissolve. The next morning, Mira walked along the lakeside, her sketchbook held firmly under her arm. The air was crisp and clear, and the world felt new. Her shadow trailed behind her on the dusty path, but it was smaller now, softer, no longer a heavy burden she had to drag along. It was just a part of her, a quiet reminder of where she had been. She stopped at her usual spot beneath the old, gnarled tree and sat down. She opened her sketchbook, took out a pencil, and without a moment's hesitation began to draw. Her hand moved with a steady, confident grace, her eyes focused, her mind clear. The past was still there, a quiet echo in the back of her mind, but it no longer controlled her. It simply walked behind her as she moved forward, step by steady step. She finished a bold, confident line, the graphite leaving a dark, decisive mark on the pristine white page. It was a simple stroke, but it was a declaration. A declaration that she was no longer a prisoner of her past, that she had reclaimed her art, her passion, and herself. She was finally free, leaving the shadow of yesterday behind, ready to face the blank canvas of tomorrow. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need a reminder that our past does and have to define our future.